This webisode of Future Skills is proudly brought to you by iFundi.
My first question, I just want to find out, with regards to transformation in the competition, the competitiveness of business, what would you say in the last 5 years have been some of the major breakthroughs?
Well, I think without any question, one of the more significant ones has been the way in which merger management in the competition space has enabled more than 140,000 South Africans to have shares in the companies that they work for. So ordinary workers now have the opportunity to benefit from the profitability of the company. And in addition to that, in many cases, they're also able to choose somebody to represent them on the board of a company. And these are not just in small establishments, they include large companies like Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Shoprite Checkers, Heineken and others. That's a considerable step forward for transformation by broadening the base, but it also means not only are many black South African workers able to get the benefits of growth, this also provides an opportunity for workers across the colour line on the shop floor to see the benefits of growth to all of them, because the employee empowerment scheme affects everybody in a workplace. The second area has been opportunities for black industrialists to grow, for black South Africans to run businesses and to grow their businesses. And we've been able to do that in two ways. The first is by the setting up of supplier development funds and localization funds. More than R1 billion has been raised for those funds. And what they do is they help to stimulate technical support for small businesses, and they encourage expansion of those businesses. And complementing that has been a stronger focus by many companies as a result of competition policies on localization, on buying from local suppliers, goods that are made here in South Africa. One of the structural features of our economy that we inherited at the end of apartheid was that we have a very significant predisposition to import goods. And the ability to manufacture and produce goods and services in any economy is good for jobs, it's good for GDP and tax revenue, but it also brings a number of significant other benefits to an economy. It diversifies that economy. It makes it less vulnerable to commodity cycles. You know, if you're only a mining economy and mining production, of course, is affected by global prices. When the cycle reaches a low, your economy goes into significant pressures. If, on the other hand, the cycle goes up, you get an enormous flow of money into your economy. Your exchange rate appreciates, which sometimes has a negative effect on export performance. So you want a balanced economy. You want an economy with a strong mining sector, strong manufacturing, strong agriculture, and strong services sector. So these supplier development and localization funds are about producing that more balanced economy. The other area that we've made significant progress in transformation of the economy is the measures to protect jobs of workers.
Can you tell me about that?
When you have a merger, one company buys another company. Typically what happens in many parts of the world is the combined entity goes through a job shedding period. They've got duplicate functions and they begin to cut staff. That means ordinary workers are then retrenched. In economies with high levels of employment and low levels of unemployment, the market can absorb that. But in the case of South Africa, with the historical legacies that we have and the very young population that we have, we can't afford massive job shedding in our economy. So we've put in place protections for workers from retrenchment in the case of mergers.
Yes.
But we've also had the Competition Commission institute what I call market inquiries. A market inquiry is where they look at one sector of the economy and they look at the structure of that sector, the practices in that sector, and does it help young South Africans to enter into that market? Recently, as an example, we looked at Google search. Does the practices that Google search follow and that it has in the South African market support young people and black South Africans and small businesses from being able to get onto the Google platforms? And we concluded through the competition process that there was scope for improvements. And so Google was asked to set up a fund that will enable young people to enter the app stores and put their products up. With some of the platforms, for example, delivery platforms, township enterprises need to be included. You can't, if there's a local company operating in Soweto and it has a delivery service, it would be anti-competitive for KFC franchisees to be compelled to only put their food on Uber Eats and not give that young person running a delivery service in the township an opportunity to carry their goods. So that's another area of transformation. And the final one that I want to point to is action by the competition authorities where there is price discrimination against small players in the market. And our laws are now very clear that discrimination against small players can immediately be investigated by the Commission, and they can of course take action where that price differentiation is not founded on something that the law permits. I make these points because the economy that we've inherited was a highly concentrated economy, and over a number of years what the competition authorities looked at was only the conduct of firms. But we've recognized that's not enough. When we only look at the behavior of firms, we haven't been able to change the levels of economic concentration. So in 2019, the President signed into law a whole new set of measures that were passed by Parliament that give the competition authorities enormous new responsibilities and powers. And COVID delayed a little bit the start of the investigation, but we've now we've completed one on these online platforms. They would be from the ones that you buy your property online to food delivery services to search hotel bookings and so on. We're doing one now on fresh food produce. And we will do one on the steel industry, and there will be one on media and digital platforms. In future, more market inquiries will take place, and they're about opening the South African economy to more South Africans. That's really the heart of what our competition policy is trying to do.
Fantastic. We've got AGOA, the summit coming through now in November. BRICS was an outstanding success. Looking at South Africa, what would you say, as the young people, we would need to inherit an economy that is vibrant like the one we've got? I'm looking at South Africa's export standing in Africa. We are right there at the top. What are some of the things that have worked that you would say this is a model that has worked, that has made South Africa stand out when it comes to export as in comparison with all African countries?
So South Africa is by far the biggest user of AGOA. In other words, by value, we export more to the United States under AGOA than any other sub-Saharan African country. In fact, in over the last year or two, I guess, we would have exported 3 times more than the next most significant exporter to the United States.
It's massive.
And our single biggest export product is vehicles, is cars.
Automotive.
And the auto exports to the United States has not only benefited workers in Tshwane, where we've got a number of car makers, and the Eastern Cape, both Gqeberha and Buffalo City, as well as workers in eThekwini, but it's also helped component suppliers, which are spread in different parts of the country.
Okay.
It's also helped neighboring countries. So Botswana does wire harnesses that are used to bring in the electronic wiring of cars, and that is then exported to South Africa. We then put it into our cars, and some of those cars then get exported to the United States under AGOA. Lesotho does car seats for South African vehicles, for new vehicles, and that's created many hundreds of jobs in Lesotho. The tire makers in South Africa buy rubber from a country like, say, one of the countries in West Africa, providing an economic value in West Africa. So when South Africa benefits, it also pulls supply bases from other African countries into its production. We've been a big exporter of agricultural products, and that's been very significant to our efforts, particularly a product like citrus, and we want to export even more citrus to the United States.
I saw that. I think the citrus is like the third highest export that we've got. Wonderful. My last question, Mr. Minister, skills and the skills development that's needed for the future. Digital era is here. What would you say we need to copy and paste in terms of the skills development? How important is it, and what impact is the digital era going to have or having?
Well, first, skills is absolutely vital. There's no question about it that in the many priorities that we have as a country, skills development is critical. And skills development is not just having young people go to university and technical college. It's also about making sure that we set the standards high and we really improve teaching and the support we offer young people in teaching, bringing digital technologies, because a degree is only as much worth as the conceptual skills it gives you. Then you need to get work exposure, and you need to learn skills development. A huge part of any skills development takes place at the workplace. So in other words, by the time you leave university, you've got one portion of the skills that you need, but the other portion you get in the workplace. Like you can't drive a car with two wheels only. You need four wheels. So the two wheels on the left side would be your formal certificate, degree or diploma. The skills on your right side would be the work experience. I went to one very large car maker in KZN a number of years ago, and they were benchmarking Toyota's performance against other Toyota operations elsewhere in the world. And as I went from, and the background to the story is that South Africa used to import its high-ace taxis.
Taxis, okay.
And in 2009, the late Dr. Johan van Zyl was the CEO of Toyota, and I had a conversation, and I challenged him. I said, Johan, why should we be importing taxis from other parts of the world when there's such a huge taxi market here? Anyway, we collaborated, and eventually Toyota decided to bring the taxi production to South Africa. And when the taxi was launched, he invited me to come and meet the workers and the management. And when I got to the paint shop, he introduced me to a young chemical engineer. When I got to the body shop, a young mechanical engineer. When I got to where they do the electronics, a young electrical engineer. And these were young South Africans, black South Africans, women. And I said to him, Johan, how well are our sections performing against Toyota standards globally? And he says to me, well, some of these young people are so good, we're now exporting them to our global operations.
Wow.
In fact, sometimes we feel that they're stealing our best talent. But we also, in this section, he would say to me, we are the second best globally in Toyota. In this one, we are, and he would rate us. And he said that the reason we're so good, and I said to him, but I often hear companies complaining about the skills challenges in South Africa. And he said, where do you get your people? He says, the same place that everyone else gets their people. But what we do is, once universities teach you to think, we teach you to work. And that skill, the ability to have an applied skill, is critical. The German model is very interesting. In Germany, with many degrees and diplomas and certificates, you can't get it without a compulsory period of work exposure. They want to see how you perform in the work environment as a critical part of evaluating whether you've got the right skills. And our system has focused too much on the academic side of the work. That's necessary. It's always necessary, but you also need academic and practical has to go hand in hand. And so a reform of skills development is one in which we get more partnerships between universities, the vet colleges and others with large workplaces so that young people can get that exposure.
Mr. Patel, it's been an honor, and thank you so much. We wish you all the best, and we'll see you at the AGOA.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.
Cheers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
This webisode of Future Skills is proudly brought to you by iFundi.